sensing the nervousness of Arsenal fans or whatever. What about this for an offer, George? Which is...
I'll take it.
Okay, no. Here it is. Right. You don't know what it is yet. Okay, the Premier League is what you really want, right? Okay, so I'll give you this. You have to beat... A win on the last day of the season gives you the Premier League, right? And your game is Palace away. But you're 2-0 down to Tottenham at half-time in the Champions League final. Hello and welcome to the Guardian Football Weekly. And after Monday's Football is Amazing episode, a tougher gig for today's panel. Can we get a good 20 out of Arsenal 1, Chelsea 0? A goal down going into the second leg. Liam Rosenior had a plan to keep it tight for 60, bring on some attacking flair and wait for a moment to come. In the end, Chelsea kept it tight for 60 and then kept it tight for another 30. Did they think there was a third leg? Kai Havertz sewed it all up. And Arsenal are at Wembley. If they're going to bottle it this season, they're making sure they do it in a spectacular fashion. At least the transfer window was explosive as ever. Pray for your Gary Cotterells and your Jim Whites. You can't roll 10 hours of Jurgen Strand-Larsen coverage in glitter. Sunderland's unbeaten home record is something to discuss. The only one in the Premier League, an easy win over Burnley, the latest on Monday. We'll discuss Pep discussing the horrors of war and bring you the good news that Gianni's ready to let Russia play football again. Invade a country for long enough and, well, it gets boring, doesn't it? Why not have a match winner gets the Donbass? Cristiano Ronaldo's on strike, just £177 million a year, but the man still has rights. There's some EFL, changes to the Women's FA Cup, your questions, and that's today's Guardian Football Weekly. On the panel today, Barry Glendenning, welcome.
Hi, Max.
Lucy Ward, hello.
Hi, Max.
And good morning to Jordan Jarrett-Bryan.
Morning to you too, sir.
Let's start then at the Emirates. Arsenal 1, Chelsea 0. Arsenal into the Carabao Cup final. The quadruple is still on. Mike says, cancel the pod. No one should ever have to talk about that. Colm says, no questions, just sympathy that you have to review that dross. And Rich says, tactical masterclass or utter shite? Question mark. I didn't hate this football match, Barry, but equally I'm looking forward to finding out how you lot filled 15 minutes on it.
I didn't hate it either. It wasn't great. I mean, it was bad. It was a bad game. But I thought Chelsea's approach was kind of interesting. They started with a back five and little or no ambition beyond not conceding a goal for the first hour and hoping for the best. And that kind of went well for them insofar as they didn't concede a goal until the 98th minute, but they never really looked like scoring one. Enzo Fernandez had one shot on target that needed saving, sent two over the bar. I think Mark Cucurella sent one over the bar from distance, and Wesley Fofana had a half-ish, if even a half chance with a flick at a corner that went wide, and that was about the sum of their endeavours, and it wasn't enough. Arsenal were similarly lacking in ambition, but they didn't need to be ambitious because they didn't need to score. Chelsea were the ones who were behind in the tie, so Arsenal kind of kept them at arm's length throughout and then hit them with that very late sucker punch from Kai Havertz. Good goal on the counter, which didn't really matter in the cosmic scheme of things. It was nice for Kai Havertz, obviously. Because he scored against his former club and there was no celebration there. He was delighted with himself. Arsenal are through to the final of a competition they haven't won since 1993. I think they've lost 3 finals since then. And they're in their first finals since 2020. So they're delighted with themselves. The quadruple is still on. Well, I presume we'll have to start talking about that at some stage until it isn't on anymore. But I think it would have been interesting if Chelsea had got a goal when Liam Rosenior made the changes. One change he did make is he removed his spectacles because I presume because it was lashing rain in London last night and he probably couldn't see through them. But yeah, if they had got a goal then and somehow nicked the tie in the end in extra time or whatever, we'd be talking about Arsenal's paucity of ambition and Mikel Arteta being overly cautious again. But Arsenal didn't need, it worked out fine for them in the end. So it's Rosenior who's getting pelters.
I don't know if Rosenior's getting pelters, but he's getting some criticism, I guess, Lucy. Joe says, have Chelsea not heard of getting it launched? Hoop says, if 6 big men are in the box, but you never actually put the ball into said box, were those 6 big men ever in the box at all? Like, we were waiting. It felt like the first half of the plan was good, wasn't it? Stay in the tie, and then... But nothing came, and maybe that is just a testament to how good Arsenal are defensively. Cole Palmer split the lines a few times, but they didn't seem that urgency.
No, I think it was a clean sheet masterclass from Arsenal. It doesn't have to look good; they just need to get through to a final. I think that's it. It doesn't need to entertain us, does it? But just a couple of things I picked out. It looked like Chelsea were just trying to make it a 30-minute game or a 20-minute game. And I've talked about it on the pod before, it's amazing that Chelsea is still playing players for a certain amount of minutes that the medical department... So I did Napoli last week. I did Napoli-Chelsea last week, and he played 3 at the back. I think trying to be a little bit too clever because there was actually only 1 centre-back amongst the 3 centre-backs. So they really struggled at the start. And then he brought... I think it was Cole Palmer on at half-time, because obviously Cole Palmer could only play 45 minutes, I'm presuming. Otherwise, why not play Cole Palmer from the start? But still didn't bring a centre-back on. But Napoli were shattered. They had loads of injuries, so they ended up winning with a bit of magic from João Pedro. But yeah, it's quite an interesting dynamic around that he obviously, if he was in complete control... I think some of the decisions he wouldn't make, but obviously he's forsaking some of that because he's managing Chelsea. The players that came on with half an hour to go obviously could only play half an hour. Reece James couldn't play anything at all, which obviously is a problem for Chelsea because luckily they've got João Pedro, who is excellent, probably one of the best forwards in the. Just because he's so clever, he had Saliba doubting whether to go drop with him or wherever he went, they were trying to create a little bit of space, getting Fernandes running beyond and Delap out wide. But yeah, I think it's one of those finely balanced. If they had have got a goal and it had gone to extra time, then it would have changed. It nearly worked, but it didn't work. And so therefore people are saying, well, you needed a goal. Why did you not try and get a goal right from the start when you've got actually players on the pitch that can do that? The other point that the corner routine that everybody was treating like he was the messiah of thinking about this corner routine. If you do take that many defenders out of the box, then it just creates a little bit more space and less blockers for your headers of the ball for Arsenal. So it isn't all positive, because instead of it being chaos with loads of bodies in there, there's hardly any bodies in there. So if you get a good ball in, then, and you've got there's various... Yeah, exactly. That first one, the ball went in. I'm thinking, if I'd have scored there, I would actually have laughed because it was like, wow, this is brilliant. What's going on here? Oh, they take, how clever is that? Oh, you've conceded. But yeah, I think, Liam Delap is an interesting one because he's obviously an excellent coach, but he just feels like he has to build his part up because everybody's sort of saying, how on earth have you got that job? Even though you're obviously an excellent coach, blah, blah, blah. So I think he tries to sort of say things that are a bit different, do things that are a bit different, but ultimately he is absolutely hamstrung by what a head of medical is saying about his players.
That's something Shay Given suggested on Match of the Day on Saturday or Sunday night, that teams should try to take Arsenal players out of the box by putting 3 men on the halfway line. And I think Marseille did it before against Chelsea, or some team in Europe did it against Chelsea or against Arsenal, and it worked up to a point, but it's not a new novel idea.
It's not. No.
Barry, the BBC have literally got on their homepage something like Chelsea take match of the day's corner idea on their website right now. So they're claiming credit for it. They're taking credit.
But it's definitely had it before. I think the interesting thing about that is that, how far can you push it? Like, where, obviously, but if you leave 4 up, at some point, at some point it becomes an odd situation where Arsenal would just say, well, we'll gamble, because if you've got 6 back and 7 up or whatever, then it doesn't make sense. So 3, could you go 4?
It's because of the quick decision, Max, that was the issue, because they waited and then ran, and then all of a sudden you've got to make a quick decision as an Arsenal player.
Right.
But once they do it
that's interesting.
You'll be ready for next. So that first one was was obviously took Arsenal by surprise. But then it's like, hang on a minute, you're taking away the blockers, and the blockers are the most difficult thing to get past because the blockers will stop, players just getting a little bit of space and a free header on the ball. So yeah, it was interesting though.
Arsenal score so many goals from corners. We must try something different. It might not be a great idea. I'm with Lucy. I think there are flaws with this particular tactic, but I'm imagining the thinking is, well, nothing else is working. So we might as well try something different.
So. Yeah, I think, and fair enough. I just got the idea. If you run away too late from the box, you're just leaving 4 people unmarked. Like you should go before the kick is taken. And they did that. Look, Jordan, the quadruple is still on, right? Barney wrote a piece saying, look, no one wins the quadruple. It doesn't happen. But like Arsenal are now in a position, and he wrote it down: 11 more league wins, 6 domestic cup games, one of which is the Carabao Cup final. Another is Wigan in the FA Cup next. 4 rounds of the Champions League. That's what you have to do. What's the thinking?
Well, when you break it down like that, it definitely sounds and feels a little bit more
sounds achievable, doesn't it?
It does sound achievable. He's right. I was thinking about this the other day. It's probably the first time I can remember Arsenal being in February and favourites for all 4 competitions. I mean, even with Arsenal winning leagues, they weren't favourites for all 4 comps they were in. There are favourites for all 4, in my opinion. So yeah, it's a really nice breakdown from Barney there, because as an Arsenal fan myself, makes me think, actually, this isn't quite as hard. And you haven't got to win all those league games. We might touch on the games on the weekend against Barry's lot, Sunderland, but this title could get wrapped up pretty soon if results in the next couple of weeks go Arsenal's way. Just on the game itself last night, I mean, it was a hard watch, I think, for most people, for sure. But I've just got back from the gym and I've listened to one podcast.
What a humble brag that is.
Well, no, I only mentioned that to say that I listened to a podcast. That's the reason I inserted the fact that I was in the gym. That's
God.
For the people listening, it's what time in the morning? It's 8:30 in the morning.
1001, 1002.
Don't do that.
Anyway,
don't do that, Max. Don't do that. And my point being, some of the reports I've read overnight and the pod I listened to this morning are being quite critical of Leo and Rosenior and quite praising of Arsenal's tactics. And I think it was the other way around. I know Arsenal got the result they wanted, and the way it ended, as Barry said earlier on, with Kai Havertz getting the winner in dramatic fashion, was brilliant from an Arsenal perspective. But I was thinking to myself, it's only 1 goal. And if Chelsea get that first goal, their tails are up. This could be for Arsenal once again. I don't think Arsenal played very well in that particular first half. And okay, they didn't need to score a goal, but there's only 1 goal difference. So I'm not so sure the way Arsenal played it is as good as people are making out. I just wonder if because they went through, it looks like it was a masterclass. But I think it's another flex for Arsenal to showcase their strength in depth. You know, no Saka, no Calafiori, no Odegaard, no Raya. They're 4 starters that would have been in that 11 had it been a Premier League game. You'd have thought they were missing, and Arsenal still managed to get the job done. And I do want to credit the referee on the penalty decision that was in the second half, because had that been a penalty and it wasn't given, I'd be on this podcast saying, referee had a shocker, referee done us over, referee had a mare, but he got it right. And in real time to spot that, I thought was a really, really good
What, the Chalobah challenge?
The Chalobah one, yeah. Did you think it was a pen?
I thought it might be a penalty. I think it feels like 2... Is it if it's 1 movement or 2 movements? Because he gets the ball, but then he does... The ball is then moved. If it's another... We're back to phases of play. If then getting the ball is still in Martinelli's path, I think, and then he lifts his leg and takes him out. I wouldn't have been surprised if it had been given. I sort of think whichever way it goes, keep with that decision on the pitch, which is it's imperfect, but football is imperfect, right? Sort of why we love it. I had an offer. I was trying to think of the sensing the nervousness of Arsenal fans or whatever. What about this for an offer, Jordan? Which is,
I'll take it.
Okay, no. Here it is. Right. You don't know what it is yet. Okay, the Premier League is what you really want, right? Okay, so I'll give you this. You have to beat a win on the last day of the season, gives you the Premier League, right? And your game is Palace away, but you're 2-0 down to Tottenham at half-time in the Champions League final. That's the situation. I know chronologically it doesn't quite work, but I'm giving you the Premier League if you beat Palace away in May, but you are then, and obviously it's as hypothetical as it gets, right? Tottenham aren't getting the Champions League final, but that's what I'm trying to put that in your mind as an Arsenal fan. Do you take that ludicrous hypothetical offer?
as opposed to playing the season out now as it currently going.
Yeah. She could win both. She could win the Champions League.
Play the season out, George.
I'll play the
surely.
season out. I'll play the season out.
What it meant to Arsenal was quite interesting because we know our vision of Arsenal at the moment is they're a dominant force and can they win? They've been good the last few seasons. But the reaction of the players and the staff and the subs about getting through shows you, one, how difficult Chelsea made it, and two, that, it's getting to a cup final is massive. Getting the first trophy for, 6 years or whatever it is. They were also pleased for Havertz. I just think that collective reaction was actually, rather than job done, well done, it was a real sort of visceral reaction to getting through to a final, which I thought was really interesting.
I think that felt like the combination of this has been 3, 4, 5 years of work to get to a final. They've got to win the final, right? So as Roy Keane says, you only enjoy a final if you win it. But they're there and they deserve to be there. And after last year's semi-final against Newcastle, the 2 legs where they were pathetic, I thought, in both legs, I think to come back a year later and somewhat cruise to the final, I would say, I think feels like a moment. I don't subscribe to this idea that winning the League Cup, there's a direct link with winning more trophies. I think Jose and Pep, because they took it seriously, make us think that this is the prelude to a treble. Most teams win the League Cup, don't win anything else. So I think I don't buy that. But I think ahead of a big game on the weekend against Sunderland, I think that if Arsenal can beat Sunderland on the weekend and Liverpool beat City, which they often do at Anfield, I think 9 points feels like a lead that even I have to concede. I think that's it. Even in February, Max is nodding his head, but I just don't see them making up 9 points.
No,
I think
I agree.
This game last night, I think really makes them bounce into that game on the weekend thinking, we've got a cup final bagged. Let's go and wrap up this league. Let's go and smash whoever in the Champions League, beat Wigan in the FA Cup and win the quad.
Man City, Newcastle tonight. City 2 up from the first leg. Perhaps more interesting is off the pitch. Pep Guardiola saying he wants to use his position to speak up to be a better society. He missed media duties last Friday after speaking in support of Palestinian children at a charity concert in Barcelona. Before the Newcastle game, he spoke passionately about children being killed. This is from the BBC, and injured in conflict, saying the footage he sees hurts me, he said. He referenced the conflicts in Palestine, Ukraine, Sudan, and the shootings by ICE in the United States. He said, today we can see it. Before we could not see it. It hurts me. If it was the opposite side, it would hurt me. I'm sorry. I will stand up. Always, I will be there. Always. Completely kill thousands of innocent people. It hurts me. It's no more complicated than that. No more. I cannot imagine how anybody cannot feel that when you see the images every single day, the fathers, mothers, kids having what happened, their lives being destroyed, and people cannot feel a little bit of being attached. I'm sorry, I cannot feel it. And I think, Barry, saying that in good faith, I applaud him for speaking out, and not enough people do speak out or use their position, and he has a position of some power here. The interesting country that he brought up was Sudan, because Sudan is taking the UAE, who are the owners of Manchester City, to the International Court of Justice, accusing it of supporting Sudan's paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, the RSF, in civil war. Khartoum argues that the UAE is complicit in the genocide of the Masalik community in West Darfur through its military, financial aid and political backing for the RSF. The UAE has strongly rejected Sudan's allegations, calling the case a cynical publicity stunt. Since that war began in April 2023, both the RSF and the Sudanese army have been accused of committing atrocities. And that context, I think, is important, Barry, given who Pep's employers are. But that doesn't necessarily... I don't know how much that takes away from his whole point, which is seeing this kind of stuff is incredibly upsetting.
Yeah, they are not controversial opinions, are they? Although some suggest he's talking out of turn. I think last year the Jewish Representative Council referred to remarks he made about Palestine as being about Gaza being shameful. But again, nothing he's saying is controversial, at least not to me anyway. And it would be very easy for him to pull the old I am but a humble football coach card and say that he only wants to talk about football, as others have done, but he has chosen not to. And he is very politically tuned in and has been, for as long as I've been aware of his work. Some will accuse him of virtue signalling, and I don't think that's fair. He mentioned as well migrants, drowning when they're crossing the channel on boats, and said, that shouldn't be happening. I guess by the law of averages, quite a lot of people in Manchester City's fan base will be very much against or in favour of stopping the boats. So maybe they might take notice of what he's saying, and it might maybe force them to have a think about their views. But again, yeah, I don't think he's saying anything even remotely controversial.
I don't think it was controversial, but I think it was a very intelligent way of making a political point without it coming across the political point. I think I gather where his politics on this conflict or the conflicts are, but it was dressed in a way of you can't really argue with him. Nobody wants to see what they're seeing. But I think there was a kind of inherent thrust through that point where I know what he's trying to say. And I think I think we've become numb to it. I work in a newsroom where I see some of the most horrific images you will ever see. So I'm glad that he's flagged this. I don't think anybody would disagree with it, but I think it was a very skilled way of making a political point without it seeming like a political point.
Yeah. And there is so much bad faith everywhere in this when people are discussing it. And I know that from whatever conversation we have, that some people will accuse certainly me and other people in the panel and the Guardian, etc., of, being very politicized or not really understanding various things. And I think if we take him in good faith, then, we need more people talking in good faith saying this shit is bad. And I agree with both of you. It is not controversial to say it is sad to see these horrific images that we see every day. Welcome to part 2 of the Guardian Football Weekly. Back on the pitch then, Barry. Sunderland 3, Burnley 0. The only side with an unbeaten home record in the Premier League. 12 games. Longest unbeaten start to a top-flight campaign by a newly promoted side since Nottingham Forest in 1977-78, who went on to win the league. So, if anything, you are underperforming at this stage, Barry.
I think that Forest team went the whole season unbeaten at home, so that's something to aim for.
Yeah, teams unbeaten at home in the top 5 leagues, apart from Sunderland, Atleti, Napoli, Juve, Barca, Dortmund and PSG. It's extraordinary, Barry.
It is extraordinary, yeah. They're a really good side. I mean, I suppose you have to caveat any analysis of this game by saying Burnley were absolutely atrocious. I mean, so even by their own fairly low standards, they were diabolically bad. And I've seen, Burnley just aren't a very good Premier League side, but they have a goal most of the time, and they do have moments of quality, but there were none on show at the Stadium of Light on Monday night. But Régis Le Bris has got a really good side together. The AFCON boys are back, and Massimo Talbi, Habib Diarra were brilliant on Monday. Brian Brobby's been a great find from Ajax. Brobby. We are obliged. And yeah, they're up to ways now. They're not that far off the Champions League places. I mean, if England gets 6, if the Premier League gets 6 or 5 places, Sunderland are only 4 points off 5th. So, dare to dream. And yeah, I'm so surprised. I did not see this out, because I will repeat again. I moaned at length last season, saying that I didn't particularly want Sunderland to get promoted because I thought they'd do with Southampton and just go, stink the place up for a season and go straight back down. But boy, have I been proved spectacularly wrong.
What have they done so well, Lucy?
Well, recruitment. I mean, recruitment combined with Régis Le Bris and his like tactical nous is just incredible. But the recruitment is everything. You know, like what makes a good manager? Good players. You know, that is so key. But what he has done is molded them really quickly. I mean, I watched Brian Brobby at Ajax against Villa. I think it was last season in Europe. And when I went to watch him, and I was thinking, I knew that the clubs in England were looking at him, and I'm thinking, yeah, he looks, it looks like he's got something, but he didn't really show that much in the game. But it's amazing where sometimes you just get lucky. You get a player like that who's a goal scorer, who then turns into something that even probably the Sunderland hierarchy didn't expect. But they've got everything right. The recruitment is perfect. They've taken teams by surprise, and they need to make the most of this season, because then you look into next season and how teams will look at them and think, right, we know a little bit how to play. Maybe have the best players taken off them. So absolutely enjoy this season, because you never know. Europe, who knows? And if they get Europe, then you're in a situation where you probably can keep that structure in place. But yeah, recruitment has been absolutely key, and having a coach that can manage and coach those it sounds simple, but not everybody gets that right.
I have a question for Barry. What would Le Bris have to do, or where would he have to finish, do you think, to win Manager of the Year?
That's a good question. Well, in the very unlikely event they finish in the top 5, I think then he has to get it. Well, it also depends on whether Arsenal win the league, doesn't it? Because I guess I'd imagine if Arsenal won the league and someone else got Manager of the Year apart from Arteta.
If Arteta bottles Manager of the Year after winning the quadruple, was it worth it? Is that what you're saying?
I could see that going down badly among Gooners, but
I don't know. I think if he gets top 5, top 6, even if Arsenal win the league, I think the job he's done is absolutely phenomenal. He's been promoted.
Astonishingly good job. It's an astonishingly good job. I don't really care whether he gets Manager of the Year or not, to be honest.
You do.
No, I don't. It's a team sport.
Yeah,
I'm not fussed about. But I suppose if he got them into Europe as a newly promoted side from the playoffs, having completely overhauled the squad in one summer, then you got to give it to him.
Burnley, meanwhile, without winning 15. And they've already played Dr. Tottenham, so they don't have that to look forward to. They play West Ham on Saturday, so that is an enormous game for them, isn't it? And for West Ham. But it's looking pretty bleak for them. I mean, they didn't look good in this game, actually, Lucy. But before that, they'd drawn with Spurs, they'd drawn with Liverpool, hadn't they, at Anfield, right? They're just not quite good enough. They made some interesting signings in the window. James Ward-Prowse. It's just not quite. They always give it a go, but it's just not quite good enough.
Yeah, I think, that they were always better at one end of the pitch, but obviously when you move up to the Premier League, then you need your attackers to sort of take the pressure off the defence, and that balance just hasn't worked. There's absolutely no poke whatsoever on Monday night. In fact, I looked at the XG was 0.06, which was probably all the kickoffs that they had, just passing the ball forward, combined to make 0.06. Because how can you go into a game against... I know Sunderland are strong at home, etc., but they didn't any sort of quality chance that they create. So they weren't taking risks. They didn't penetrate anywhere up the pitch. And I think the worrying things for Burnley fans is just the lack of... There look like to be a lack of fight and a bit of desire, bit passive, and I think that sometimes lack of confidence manifests itself where it looks like people are not trying, but actually it's a complete lack of confidence. They are trying, they're just bereft of any sort of belief that anything can happen that's positive.
A terrible day to be a Sky Sports News journalist outside a stadium, or a deadline day live blogger. Sani did a gallery of images at Elland Road. His day at Elland Road to Mad World by Gary Jules. nothing really happened. As Joel says, putting the dead in deadline day. Crystal Palace. I should steal these lines for myself, shouldn't I?
Yeah, that was a good one.
You have to credit the writers. Well, the team of writers. The writers' room was amazing this morning. Crystal Palace, Jordan, have broken their transfer record twice this window. Brennan Johnson, 35 million. Jorgen Strand Larsen, 48 million. So it's more than 80 million pounds on two players who are kind of okay.
Yeah, it's a lot of money on as you say, okay players. I think, whilst I think those fees are slightly inflated, from for what my opinion is worth, I think their thinking is just stay in the league. I think if we've got to spend a little bit extra to get in two players that we think, I mean, they're probably hoping between those two players they can rustle up 10 to 12 goals between now and May. That could be the 10 to 12 goals that keeps them in the league. And then they kind of get a new manager in the summer and they go again. They've gone from having their best season ever to, if it goes wrong, what could be one of their worst. So I think for them, they're just thinking, we'll take the hit, spend the money on these two attackers, stay in the league, and then, we'll reset and go again. But yeah, those do seem like quite inflated prices for two, okay attackers.
So I do think that Palace are a cautionary tale for a lot of clubs that could get into a Conference League or Europa League, because they got into Europe, they won the FA Cup, but they didn't evolve the squad quick enough. They absolutely hung Glasner out to dry in summer in terms of not supporting him. Lost key players, momentum. You can reach Europe, but if you stand still, you may as well go backwards. If you reach Europe, you then have to build a structure around it, recruit properly to then kick on, because it's those Thursday Sundays are an absolute killer, and in the Conference League particularly, and you travel into places that I can't even spell, then it is very, very difficult, and it tests your structure of your club, not just the players on the pitch. So for ambitious clubs who want to get into Europe, it's like a little bit like, well, we're going to have to then, if we do get in, then, you can't just go, yeah, this is brilliant, because next season actually it might test your Premier League status.
Depends how good your spelling is, Lucy. Where was the last European, what was the last European city you were sent to?
Ferencváros.
Okay, that is tricky. Fair enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Fair enough. I was really hoping you just said, Paris.
FC Noah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We know where the level is. Sorry, Jordan, I interrupted you.
Sorry, no, I interrupted you. I was going to ask, I wonder if, Lucy, you think that the teams like Palace, it might sound crazy, but they still have concerns about going down, just generally, right? So if they spend a lot of money on players, on big wages, they're only, 3-4 months of bad form away from being dragged into relegation zone. You don't want to be in the Championship with players on 50, 60, 70, 80 grand a week. So I wonder if they still have that kind of, we want to spend to compete in Europe in the league, but we don't want to spend too much, because if we go down, we're going to be lumbered with huge salaries.
If you think about it, John, in summer, you wouldn't have ever put Crystal Palace anywhere near last summer relegation.
Yeah.
That wouldn't have even been a consideration other than in various players' contracts, because they have to be there. But because they didn't build then, they've lost the manager, and they have then struggled in Europe at times. I've done quite a few Palace games in Europe, and they've struggled with rotating it. Yes, he likes a small squad, but he still wants these 2 or 3 that he brings on the bench to be, as good as the ones on the pitch. And I just think this could absolutely have not needed to happen, what's happened with Palace. Glasner going, if they would have supported him back in the summer. And I don't blame him. I honestly don't blame Glasner, because I just don't think that he's been helped at all.
Yeah, one presumes that in bringing in Johnson and Strand Larsen, I can't believe that fee for Strand Larsen, but I think were Newcastle going to pay even more for him during the summer, and then Palace
60.
wouldn't let him go. But he did have a good first season, 14 in 35 Premier League appearances, but he's only got one so far this season. I think he was carrying a fairly bad ankle injury for quite some time, so maybe he deserves a pass, but I haven't been impressed with him at all this season. I know he's been playing in a bad team, but he is part of that bad team and part of the reason they're really bad. But one presumes they were expecting to offload Jean-Philippe Mateta, and that move to Milan fell through because he failed his medical. So
Yeah, he's got an inflamed knee. They concluded he needed surgery to fix that. And the obvious solution, I guess, is him to get surgery, but he could be in the French squad for the World Cup. He was in a front line with Ekitike and Nkunku, Akilush, in the last international. Tovin and Barcola, Turkey all came off the bench. There's Mbappe, Elise didn't feature. So, I don't know if I just get the surgery and say I probably won't start for France in the World Cup. But, somebody made that joke about Mateta 10 years ago, and it was Wilfried Zaha, wasn't it? He was very upset about it. So don't come at me, Jean-Philippe, when you score the winning goal in the World Cup final with your dodgy knee. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens with him and Strand Larsen. Big man up front. But they need depth. You need depth. They tried to get Dwight McNeil, and it fell through due to late paperwork, which seems a weird reason for something to fall through. Dwight McNeil's partner, Megan Sharpley, said the midfielder got radio silence from Palace. On social media, she said a 4.5-year deal had been offered, and the pair had, quote, prepared to move our life hundreds of miles away before having it torn away without explanation. We live in a world where everyone is aware of how big a problem mental health is. In football, why do we find it acceptable? Because these young men are on a lot of money, and that's okay to mess and toy with their mental health, and that it's just part of the job. We all deserve to be treated with respect, kindness, and fairly. The last 48 hours have broken my heart to see how the football world you love so much can be so cruel to you, to have something promised to you, to have been dragged along on an emotional roller coaster and to be toyed with until the final minute, for that to be torn away from you at the last second with absolutely no explanation, going from everything to radio silence, no phone call, no communication, and be left brokenhearted with nothing but confusion has hurt more than I can say. Lucy, you're a footballer. You're also the wife of a footballer, Neil Redfern.
I'm a wag.
I don't know where a wag you
exactly
are. I don't know when
I
you
am.
when you got together, and I presumed, I was thinking before I looked at his Wikipedia that he'd have refused to leave Yorkshire, but he had a couple of spells at Watford and Charlton, didn't he? So I don't know if you had to uproot your life or not, or you were part of this sort of this thing that we don't really think about of just, oh, we're off here. I've signed for them, kids and family, blah, go.
Yeah, I mean, I completely understand how people read that who are not involved in football and think, oh, God, first world your millionaire husband and your nice lifestyle. However, right, she's obviously fiercely loyal to him. So when things happen, it's very difficult because unless you live in that world, it's very difficult to understand that you're actually at the whim of a team from hundreds of miles away that you could absolutely change your life. And obviously your life is her life will be around him and and the kids and which school they're at. But it's difficult, it is, and people will be listening to this and going, oh, that, it is a harder life than you think, I think, being a professional footballer, because you have to perform every single week, otherwise you don't get a contract the next time. But I mean, Neil was a manager by the time, or a coach by the time we met. And even then, anything that happened negative against him, I was ready to fight everybody. It's like you just think about your own situation and your own partners. And, people come out with things about them. You would be fiercely, your own private life, you'd be fiercely loyal. So sometimes when that plays out, it's very difficult to sort of stay quiet. But it is tough. And when you were reading it out, I'm thinking, yeah, I can imagine. They were thinking, right, we're going to go to Palace. This is great. Well, we'll have to move. We'll get everything ready. Then all of a sudden, last minute, it was like, no, you're not. And he's obviously not playing that much at Everton. So yeah, it is tough. And I think, but if you're not part of that, you really can't get your head around that.
No, I remember doing a radio show with Kevin Nolan on TalkSport, and him telling the story of when I think he signed for Newcastle from Bolton. And he didn't really know how to tell Mrs. Nolan. So literally one day as he was leaving for training, he just, he's at the front door, he says, I've just signed for Newcastle, bang, shut the door and then got in the car. It's perhaps not the best way of dealing with these things. Anyway, Liverpool have agreed to sign centre-back Jeremy Jacquet for 60 million from Rennes. There was a tweet, it's a sort of name Bob Mortimer would make up. But but he's coming in the summer, isn't he? And I think quite a few people are saying Liverpool needed to strengthen now if they want, to try and compete in the Champions League this season. Your mate Calvin Phillips, Lucy, has joined Sheffield United on loan from Manchester City for the rest of the season. And look, it'd be great for him to get some minutes, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I just play football. I just think it's so disappointing for Cal the last few years. I genuinely think that City got him so that somebody else didn't get him. You know, if you saw the way that he played for Bielsa, so I think it's a little bit of a slight that Guardiola couldn't get him to play like that. You know, that obviously it won't all be everybody else's fault, but I do think if he'd have gone somewhere else, he'd have played a lot more. He struggled with injuries as well, but he's actually just a genuinely good kid, you know, who wants to play football, and even when he went on loan, everything just didn't work out. He got sent off for West Ham. That didn't help. And then he sort of became a figure where people sort of laughed at him. But he, you know, he deserves a little bit more respect than that. And I really hope that he gets some minutes, he gets himself match fit, and he gets himself back up to the level that we know. Because it's that, I don't know. It's just, I think genuinely nice people you want the best for, and I do think he's been. In terms of City, being stiffed over a little bit at the start. I think if he'd have gone somewhere like Liverpool, I think he'd have played a lot more at that particular level when he was, you know, regular, probably the best England player around that time when he moved. And, you know, that's it. And this is what happens with footballers. Circumstance, opportunity, injuries, you just never know which way it's going to go.
And such a short career, isn't it? And it can be, you're right, the highs and lows are pretty extreme and can happen pretty fast. Angel Gomez has signed for Wolves. They now have 4 Gomezes. How many Gomezes can you have in a squad? But yeah, at least they were self-aware enough to say, you know, room for another Gomez in their social media post about it all. That'll do for part 2. Part 3, we'll do some Gianni Infantino. Oh, goody. Welcome to part 3 of the Guardian Football Weekly. Andy says, is Infantino now preparing the ground so he can award next year's peace prize to Putin? Ukraine's sports minister has called the FIFA president irresponsible and infantile for saying that world football's governing body will look at lifting a ban on Russia. Russian national teams and clubs were suspended from all competitions by FIFA and UEFA in February 2022 after the country's second invasion of Ukraine. The war is still going on, of course. Infantino said this ban has not achieved anything, has just created more frustration and hatred. Having girls and boys from Russia being able to play football games in other parts of Europe would help. That is coupled with the International Olympic Committee President Kirsty Coventry saying throughout the campaign, and in many of our conversations since, I've heard the same message from you. Focus on our core. We're a sports organisation. We understand politics. We know we don't operate in a vacuum, but our game is sport. That means keeping sport a neutral ground, a place where every athlete can compete freely without being held back by the politics or divisions of their governments. General understanding, without mentioning it directly, is that she's referring to Russia's exclusion ahead of this Winter Olympics. I don't know what you think, Barry. I mean, the flip side argument is there are, I don't know, 116 conflicts going on in the world, I think, and you know, FIFA doesn't get involved in all of them. Hasn't got involved in Israel. But I don't know if Infantino's given back his medal of whatever it was that Putin gave him.
I'd hazard a guess he probably hasn't. But
probably not.
Maybe he gave it to Donald Trump.
Possible.
Nesta
I can see both sides. I don't think Russia should be allowed back. But I also think other countries should also be banned. And it does seem slightly odd or unfair even that Russia are subject to this ban when other countries aren't. And beyond that, I don't really know what to say, to be honest.
No, that's okay. It's a complicated situation. Infantino did apologise to England football fans over comments he made at Davos when he said that the World Cup in Qatar in 2022 had been special. For the first time in history, no Brit was arrested. He said, I need to apologise. It was meant more of a light-hearted remark to show actually that the World Cup in Qatar was a celebration, a peaceful event, and everyone came together in a peaceful way. Having English fans, real fans, coming in a peaceful way and enjoying cheering for their team is something that is fantastic. I think we've all learned from many of Infantino's speeches that he shouldn't attempt humour. But Lucy...
To be fair, I think that was quite amusing.
Yeah. But you know, there's a saying that, I mean, and it is absolutely typifies Infantino. He has got absolutely pissed on the power that's been afforded to him. He's just got completely carried away with everything, and just, you know, I don't know, that award for Trump.
In Fitbar, Hearts lost last night away at St Mirren. Celtic away to Aberdeen tonight. Rangers host Kilmarnock. Both can move to just within 3 points of the leaders. So a three-way title race in Fitbar. We'll do a proper Fitbar corner soon and go to the Jazz Bar, of course. Lucy, potential changes to the Women's FA Cup reported by Tom Gary in The Guardian yesterday exclusively. What are they? Are they good?
Yeah, they basically want to make sure that the best two teams get to the final by excluding some the tier 7 clubs. Now, some tier 7 clubs are quite good, the ones around the big cities like London and Manchester. But it's like the FA Cup is the FA Cup. It's not broken for 99% of clubs. And they look like they're trying to change it just for the few top. And it's quite interesting. Back in the day when I played, obviously, the draws for the FA Cup were held in secret for the Women's FA Cup. And you just knew that they tried to get the best two teams in the final. Because you knew that...
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Honestly, it was incredible, allegedly. But so say there was 4 teams in the and we'd got to the semi-final. They would make sure the 2 better teams would play the 2 worst teams so that they make sure, honestly, and we managed to get to the final once and actually proved why that is because we got battered, but that, that's by the by. But I used to be like, why on earth why are these draws made in secret? It's like, the FA Cup semi-final draw on the FA Cup quarter-final draw for women is an in each tie is a better team than the one in. And it's like, what are you doing? So that, I don't know whether they want to, but they want to seed teams, which will be the top 4 of the WSL, to make sure then the last 32 will be like that bracket style. So you could follow your map of your club to the final. That's why they want to do it. They want to make it more appealing for commercial sponsors. But I'm not being funny, but you can't exclude. The whole point of the FA Cup is that everybody can play in it and everybody can get as far as they possibly can. And honestly, it's not good.
Yeah, the FA Cup's the FA Cup. The draw is the draw, right? I agree with you. Honourable mention to Luton Town and their media team. Their 2026 calendar is 31 days old, and already 5 of the 12 players have left the club. This is pretty impressive stuff. And regards Barney, who had a brilliant Monday pod, I think. Surely we need a Squires masterpiece of Erling Haaland hugging Barney while they make pottery together while they sit at the potter's wheel to Unchained Melody. I have sent the message on to Squires, so fingers crossed he can do his best work. Yes, Jordan?
Can I just do a Barry impersonation, if you will? I got a LinkedIn message a couple of months back from a listener, Joe McCormick. He's director. I won't name the company because I'm not sure if we're allowed to name brands on this podcast. He's director, so he earns a lot of money, clearly. This was 2 months ago. Hi, Jordan. Hope you are well and don't mind me messaging you on LinkedIn. I tried to find an email, but couldn't. My friend Ewan is getting married on New Year's Eve. Both of us are big fans of the Football Weekly and regularly discuss episodes with each other. You're the pundit he mentions the most, especially your Villa takes. Any chance you would have a chance to record a brief good luck message ahead of his wedding day? It would be class to be able to surprise him. So obviously I'm 2 months late and the wedding has come and gone.
You are. Which is, I isn't LinkedIn, you're meant to be really ahead of the game. I thought that was sort of the MO of LinkedIn. But here we are. Hopefully they're still together, but yeah. Go for it,
it might be divorced.
No. They could be by now. Just to say, big up Mrs. and Mrs. Ewan. Hope you had a lovely wedding, and I wish you eternal love, commitment, and lots of great times ahead.
Beautifully done. Thank you, Jordan. And if you would like to message us on LinkedIn, I don't believe we're on LinkedIn, but you can go by Jordan Jarrett-Bryan. Yeah. If you want to LinkedIn us, you have to link with Jordan. That's the way it works.
I'm one and done. You can LinkedIn me.